You're listening to the really useful podcast. This is the tech podcast for technophobes from makeuseof.com. Welcome to the show. My name is Christian Cawley, and with me is Ben Stegner. How are you doing, Ben?
That's me. I'm doing well. I was going to say coming to you live with a new headset because I have a new headset this week, but it's not actually being used in any way other than me hearing what you're saying. So I guess you're coming to me live through a new headset, but
so.
Microphone's still good old faithful. So no changes there.
How are you doing? Are you all right?
Yeah, doing okay.
Good weekend?
Nothing too exciting. I'm trying to think of it. Yeah, it's May. Hard to believe that.
Yeah, May the 1st. Listen, we're here, as you probably noticed from the title of this week's podcast. This is a look at money making, a money making special, if you like, exploring the possibilities and the eventualities and ultimately, I guess, the realities of whether it is possible to make money online. Now, the answer is, the easy answer is yes, it is. Well, it's not particularly easy, is it?
Not particularly easy, and there's a lot of pitfalls, I would say.
Yeah.
So, and also yes, you can make money in the sense of you can maybe earn a few dollars, but whether it's at all worth your time or even works out to be minimum wage, that's a very different question.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things in life, we put a bit of effort in and get paid for it, and you don't want the amount of effort that you put into it to have a relatively low sort of comeback return, do you? So we're going to be looking at a few different things here. The one that's piqued my interest the most, and it's kind of a cool thing because it's something that a lot of people want to do. A lot of people have expressed interest in doing. I thought I might do this once upon a time, or an aspect of this, and that is how to make money playing video games, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, it's definitely more possible now than if I would have written this maybe 10 years ago or something. It would be a whole different world. But you definitely can. But like all the stuff we were talking about earlier, it's definitely tricky and there's a lot of pitfalls. So how about I go through this guide here about 7 possible ways to make money playing games, and you can let me know what you think.
Yeah, sure.
As I go through each of them.
Let's go.
Okay. So the first one is getting paid to live stream games. So basically, this would be you would join Twitch. There's other platforms, but Twitch is the biggest one, and play games for people. You'll either build a large audience, so you make money from people watching ads, or you build a smaller but loyal audience, so people donate to you, subscribe to you, that kind of thing. This is an option because all you really need to get started is a decent computer, games, a personality, and then streaming software, microphone, and free software, that kind of thing. But it is tricky because obviously Twitch is super saturated. There's a lot of people playing popular games, a lot of people playing not so popular games. So the difficulty here is, why should someone watch you instead of the hundreds of thousands of other people on the platform? So low barrier to entry, but very difficult to see any real money from.
I've messed around with streaming in the past. I just never really something that has done particularly. It's something that I've been able to sort of generate particular interest from, I guess, really. Because that whole mechanics of how you're actually going to stream it, whether you're going to be on camera yourself or not, all that sort of thing, isn't there really? So there's more to it than just streaming what you're playing. There's also
there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we could talk about here. I don't want to get too into the weeds.
Sure.
But it's with if you're on camera, you have to have like a personality there. You also have to think about how often you stream. You have to think about like your schedule, in the sense that, like, if you're playing a game, some people are variety streamers, so maybe you just like pick different games you played in your childhood and you relive them with people. Maybe you pick like a multiplayer game and you just play that all the time. You kind of have to decide that. But yeah, unless you already have, I think a lot of people find success streaming because they already have an audience from elsewhere. So like if you're an Instagram, maybe not star, but if you have a following on Instagram, or maybe if you have some success on YouTube and you move to streaming, you kind of have a built-in audience. But just to say, I'm going to be the next big World of Warcraft streamer or whatever. That's very, very difficult. So
Yeah.
easy to try, hard to make some money from.
Okay, what's
so we'll
next?
move to number 2, trying your hand at games journalism. So this is fairly self-explanatory. This would be either you start your own site or you join an existing site and get paid, likely as a freelancer, to write for that site. If you start your own site, you could get paid via ads or subscriptions from Patreon or that kind of thing. Sort of like with streaming, and a common theme you'll see here is that this is very competitive. So a lot of people want to write about games for a living. So obviously building your own site up from scratch is very difficult. You have to manage the site in addition to writing. So it's a lot to do up front. Joining another site, again, a lot of competition. You might have to do something that's kind of low level for the site. So write on games you don't want to talk about, mobile games, that kind of thing. So definitely tricky, can do it, but there's just a lot of noise out there. So you ideally have a body of work that it's already existing. So if you apply to like a mid-level gaming site, you can show that you have experience.
I think we've all had fantasies of being a games journalist, haven't we? I wanted to be a games journalist in like 1990. It seemed like the best gig in the world, playing games and then writing a few words about it every month.
Yeah, I love games, as I've talked about many times on this show, and it is fun. I have a little bit of experience. I would never say I've been like a full-blown games journalist, but for Make Use Of in the past, I've written some reviews and tips and tricks guides on new games, and then I also had a short stint for Nintendo Life years ago where I did.
Did you?
The same. Yeah, I did for.
I didn't know that.
And, yeah, but like the reality of it is, so at the time for Nintendo Life, I was mostly writing reviews of like extremely bottom of the barrel Wii U and 3DS eShop games that were just, I mean, shouldn't even have been on the platform, like shovelware junk. So that was mostly what I was doing. I did a couple guides for like newer, like when Pokemon Sun and Moon came out, I did a tips and tricks article. When Dragon Quest 7, I think, was re-released on 3DS, I did an article on that too. So it is fun, but there's something very different about playing a game to write about it versus just playing it and enjoying it. And I think anyone who really loves games, you'll kind of fall into that. Like, you're playing the game to analyze it, not just to soak it in. So it's different. You have to have a certain skill set for sure.
Sure. So what else can you do?
All right, so number 3 is creating video game guides and tutorials. This would be generally either creating like a YouTube guide where you do something people are looking for, whether it's, how to get a trophy or an achievement in a game, how to beat a tough boss, the best way to play X character in a multiplayer game, that kind of thing. There's also options where you can write guides for sites like GameFAQs, or even maybe publish your guides as an ebook where you would make money from sales versus the ad revenue you make on YouTube. The problem with this is that game guides need to be comprehensive, and you need to set yourself apart for something, like a new character comes out in Overwatch, for example, and you have a guide on YouTube. You have to set yourself apart from all the other existing guides. And writing a guide for a game is extremely, extremely time consuming. One of the examples I give in the article is GameFAQs, which is a long-time game walkthrough site. They used to have a bounty program that I think it's still, the page is available, but there's no bounties right now, where they say, hey, we want guides for these games. So at the time I took this screenshot, if you wrote up a guide for Resident Evil Village, you would get $500, which sounds awesome. But then you think about the time that it would take you to play the game multiple times, to play it enough to write about it. Imagine saying like, after you pick up this item, go here and do that. Like, that's extremely tedious. So it'd be amazing if you made minimum wage from that. And that would be probably too high. So I would not recommend this. It's just extremely tedious unless you have a drive to write a guide anyway. This is not a fun time.
I have a couple of credits in this area, and I would recommend not doing it unless you really, really love the game and you don't mind just exploring and solving particular problems or exploring particular characters or whatever the type of game is that you're doing. The return isn't probably... No, I mean, the return isn't worth it. Looking at the figures now, they're pretty much the same as they were 10, 15 years ago. So, it's nice to have the option of doing it, but it's probably not something that you would do repeatedly, put it that way.
Yeah, I think you'd probably get sick of it after your first time.
Yeah.
It could be fun for a shorter game, but then there's probably not much interest in shorter games. like a small indie game, that kind of thing. And it's just, yeah, it's just so much work. I can't even fathom. Even when you look at guides that were written on GameFAQs, 15 years ago for N64 games or whatever, it must have taken them. It's very, very comprehensive. Must have taken people just hundreds of hours to write that up. So not a good way to make actual money online. Moving on, next is hosting a gaming podcast or a YouTube channel. So in this setup, you would make some kind of weekly, daily, monthly, whatever you wanted to do show related to gaming. The possibilities are pretty open here. You could do a roundtable discussion with friends. You could do interviews with people. You could give tips for a game, talk about the history of a genre, something like that. Similar to the other things we've talked about, you can monetize this with ads or subscriptions. Patreon is an option here. This is tricky because, like with Twitch, you need a personality that people want to listen to. You need interesting things to say. You need good production quality. It doesn't turn people away. And that way, it's kind of a hybrid between writing a guide and a live stream. So you need the knowledge of writing a guide plus the charisma of writing a live stream. So this is also one where you have to do it regularly. So if you start a podcast, people need to know, okay, there's new episodes every Friday or whatever to look forward to. So low barrier to entry, but again, a very heavy saturated market.
Okay. I don't have an awful lot to add to that one at present. I'm actually in the process of talking to some people about starting a retro gaming podcast. So,
okay.
See
you'll be taking some of the advice on the guide then.
Perhaps.
You can give me credit when you hit it big.
Well, maybe I'll invite you on one day. Who knows?
Oh, I could do that too.
Okay. Is there any other options?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, so the last couple ones we'll go through here. One is to become a professional gamer through tournaments and esports. This one, again, is probably not really within the realm of most people's ability. Esports is kind of a new field, if you will, and there's a lot of just scams and con artists that are, hey, you can come play for my team, and then you never get paid, or you get paid in exposure, that kind of stuff. So if you're good enough to be really, really, really good at a game, you can maybe go to a tournament where there's cash winnings. But if you have to fly there and book a hotel, you could lose in the first round and then leave with nothing, and you had to pay for your trip and all that kind of thing. So if you're really, really good at a specific game, might be worth looking into. But like everything else, if you're not already top of the line at a game, probably not worth the time that you would put in. Streaming is probably a better option here, because even if you're not the best at a game, you can still be pretty good and have people want to watch you for other reasons.
The whole esports thing absolutely baffles me. Not that it happened, because I kind of saw it coming, and then it sort of went away for a bit. So back in the 90s, there was a TV show in the UK called Games Master. And each edition, you can watch them on YouTube, each edition would feature usually two people, playing a game on a big screen, and then it was broadcast as well. And it was in front of a live studio audience. And it was kind of like cult viewing for anyone sort of like my generation, my sort of age at the time as well, so like 13, 14, 15, maybe a bit older. And it was on a certain time, and it was on a sort of what was then considered to be a niche broadcaster, Channel 4, so like 6 p.m. on a night. So like it was, and like that aspect, I mean, the main reason you watched it was to watch that competing element of it. And I thought to myself, this would be brilliant. I would love to do this. There's like half a dozen games I could possibly be a champion at. And it was like, that's it. It's gone. No one's doing this sort of thing for like 10, 15 years or so. And then I found out, basically because it had fallen out of the public consciousness that this was possible, it actually turned out certain competitions were still going on. So like even to this day, there are sensible soccer World Cups and kickoff World Cups, which are both football games. And there are other, I mean, as Ben said, there's huge tournaments now. Esports is massive, fighting games, PvP titles, tournaments, what have you. And because there was no internet really, I didn't know these things. I mean, obviously there was an internet, and there was a sort of a very early version of the web, but generally speaking, these things weren't at the forefront as they were at that small period of time during the course of this show. So I missed out there, I always feel.
Yeah, I thought the same thing with even like MKBHD, for an example, like him. We're basically the same age, and I feel like if I would have had like some recording equipment I could have potentially done something like he did at the time, you know,
Yeah.
because we're like almost the exact same age. I mean, he knows more than I do, and he's a better personality than me, obviously.
Sure.
I'm not like saying, oh, I should have been me kind of thing, but like you kind of, like you're saying about the show, you kind of just let your mind run and think, you know, if I would have been at the right place at the right time, sort of thing. It is interesting to think about, but yeah, that's interesting that existed all the way back then. I mean, that was probably more of like like you said, a very niche interest because games weren't as mainstream
Exactly.
at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Right. What about testing games? Can you make money from that?
Yeah, testing games. We got a couple more here. Yeah, this is basically just what it sounds like. So every game needs to be play tested before it comes out. To find bugs, see what's working, see what's not working, that kind of thing. So it's not too difficult to become this in theory, but this job can also be really mind numbing. You have to probably play the same parts of the game over and over and over again, playing to intentionally try to break the game by like finding glitches or playing like you're a person that doesn't know what they're doing, that kind of thing. That can get really boring quickly. And also, you're probably not going to get into a job with a big studio right away. So you'll probably be play testing like mobile games or games that don't really interest you. So this is kind of foot in the door in a company type of job. I mean, it depends. If you're really interested in trying to break games and that sort of thing, it could work for you. But again, a lot of these positions are not going to be very exciting early on. There are on-demand playtesting services. We link a few of them in the article. Playtest Cloud and Beta Family are two of them that you can like join up and try ad hoc on your own. So maybe try those before you pursue a job in the field.
A few years ago, I worked for a software company, and I thought it might be interesting to try see what it's like to test their software rather than support their software. And everyone says, "Oh no, that's really boring." So I gave it a go for an afternoon, and my God, was it boring!
It's like probing it from every possible angle and trying to find a weakness. And
it was the UI mainly that I was asked to try and break. Clicking things in the wrong place, right-clicking things weren't supposed to be right-clicked, so clicking and trying to drag buttons that should not have been clickable and draggable, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's really boring, tedious work. It is.
Yeah, a lot of the, as you're finding, and this last one is the same way. A lot of these things are just very manual work, and that's what we're stressing too, is that you're not making. It's like this is your new job where you're making a respectable wage. You're making money, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And our last one falls under that too. So the final method is selling accounts or digital items. So you might have heard of this referred to as like gold farming in the old days. So in this method, you earn digital items like Steam trading cards or even just your account, period, and then you resell it to somebody else. So for example, like in Overwatch 2, I know I talk about Overwatch a lot, but it's my main competitive game that I know. You have to reach a certain level and win a certain number of games to play the competitive mode. And a lot of people use what's called a Smurf account, which is when they have a second account that's ranked lower than their actual skill so they can play with people who aren't as good. It's scummy, but people do it. So someone who wants to do that probably doesn't want to grind through winning all the games they have to win on a new account. So they might pay people and say, hey, I'll buy your account for $100 because I want to Smurf and don't want to spend the time on it, that sort of thing. Or you can earn other in-game items and then sell your account or sell those items to people that want them. A lot of games like CSGO have like in-game economies like this where people want items in the game and they'll pay real world money for it. Again, like common problem we've seen here, almost all these methods take a ton of time. If you don't already have these items, it's going to take you forever to get them as they're rare, and it's just not very exciting to do. And also, a lot of the time, this is against the rules of a game. So you could get your account banned, and then all your work would be for naught, and you're kind of often doing something sort of scummy too, like we said with the Smurf account. So if you play a game that has this kind of economy and it's encouraged to sell actual items in the game, take a look. But otherwise, this is another one that's just kind of a long shot, I would say.
I know one person, and I know he or she, because it's very anonymous, is not alone in having done this in Second Life, creating assets that can then be sold, skins and costumes and items that can be placed in landscapes and stuff like that. And I think there was, for a time, I don't know if it's still a thing now, when I played The Sims and The Sims 2, it was also possible to buy things in those worlds as well. So there's a bit more to it than Ben explains there. But again, I mean, some of those things can be like sold repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. So I mean, if the effort that you put into that can get quite a good return if it's the same object selling repeatedly. But if it's some of the things that Ben explains there, which are more common these days, then they probably don't return that well. And of course, things like Second Life and older versions of The Sims, or even The Sims itself, Sims 4 is now free. So I don't think as many people play those types of games as used to. Or if they do, it's certainly not a sizable proportion of the gaming available gamers that it was, if you know what I mean.
Sure. So I would say, in summary, my take on this would be just think about, if you want to make money playing games with one of these methods, these aren't the only ones, but they're the most common and broad. Think about the fact that this is something I always say when it takes like time to do something. Value your time at least as much as minimum wage, if not far more, because your time's worth way more than that. But if you think about, okay, if I write this guide, I'll earn $500, and it takes you 500 hours to write the guide. That's a bit extreme, but even 200 hours to write the guide. Okay, so you're making $4 an hour or whatever. Like, that's not worth your time, obviously. You could do something else with your time, even if it was just learning to play an instrument or something that would bring you value. Like, that's way more valuable than working for pennies on the dollar to do something with games. So just think about your time, how much it takes if you're building a skill, and if it's something that's expandable, or if it's a crowded market like we talked about. So it is possible, but just a lot of asterisks on that.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to another potential way that you can make money online, and this is with a 3D printer. Now, they're not items that every household has, obviously, but they also can be expensive, and most of them are quite expensive. So there are some reasons why you might wish to make a bit of money with a 3D printer, if only to contribute to starting to, make some money back. So here's a list of ways that you can make money with a 3D printer. I'm going to go through them relatively quickly, and then we'll have a little chat about this at the end. So number one is simply start a 3D printing service. As I said, not many people have 3D printers, but you may find that even if you own a 3D printer, you don't actually do that much 3D printing compared to other activities, or even using a dot matrix printer, hark at him. Mr. from the past there. Or, just printing on a paper. So if you open the option to other people using your printer, maybe sending you the design files and then printing them out on their behalf, then that's a way that you can make some money. Another way is to 3D print and make your own products. Find some sort of niche market, perhaps rings or jewelry, maybe gaming pieces. Find a niche market, invest in a good printer, create detailed designs, and be careful with pricing your products to factor in the cost of materials, printer, and the time it takes. You might sell and rent 3D printers. Renting out one that you already own, that's a good option. Number 5 in our list is offering 3D design services for 3D printing projects. So you're not actually printing yourself or even using your printer, but you are offering designs to people that they may then print out. On another angle is to teach 3D printing. Use your 3D printer to demonstrate how it's done. Teach people how to use a 3D printer. The great thing about 3D printers these days is that they generally don't need to be connected to any other device, because everything that you need is actually there on the 3D printer. All the controls, the user interface and everything. And they've typically got an SD card slot as well, so you can just load things up, load the STL files up from the card and print them out. 3D scanning is another opportunity, as is prototyping, creating 3D prototypes of products for companies where they get a representation of the product that they're planning before it goes to manufacture, finds weak points, issues, usability problems, that sort of thing. You might start a 3D printing blog about 3D printing. Setting up a blog is simple, it's free. There's many different opportunities there for free hosting. For example, WordPress.com, just one of many. And you could offer your 3D printing knowledge as a consulting service to anyone who requires it. Businesses, companies, even magazines looking for 3D printing writers. 3D printing is a bit of a niche thing in itself, Ben, but it's interesting to see that there's so many opportunities, or potential opportunities, for an expert in the field to do quite well with it.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm not really familiar with it at all, so I would be trusting your judgment on this, and you know much more about it than me. But I think the service one sticks out to me the most, like sort of almost like renting your car out when you're not using it. You know, the apps that let you do that sort of thing. Like if I wanted to get something 3D printed rather than buying one myself, if I'm not going to use it all the time, it would make
Yeah.
more sense to just pay someone to use theirs. You know, the materials plus a fee for using their item, and then I have it and don't have to go buy it or rent one from a store or however that would work. Um, yeah, it's just one of those things where because not many people have them, you can use it to your advantage to give people something they want from them. So yeah, I think it's some useful stuff. I've really even there was a guy on the floor below me in college who had a 3D printer, and I don't actually think I've seen one in person since then. I have very
Ooh.
little experience with them.
Well, I was going to say the first time I had any interaction with a 3D printer was I actually required some 3D printing for a Raspberry Pi project, which I think I may have written about and make use of. And it's basically a way of making a sort of a tablet with a Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi's official display, touchscreen display, which is a 7-inch display, I think it is. And there's a way of sort of mounting them together into a single unit. Now, naturally, it wasn't flat as you would like it to be, with it being a Raspberry Pi. There's a sort of a bulky bit at the back where the Pi sits. But I downloaded the STL files from the recommended location. Then I uploaded them to the website of a business relatively local to me that did 3D printing, and they turned it around within a week. And that includes me uploading, paying, then printing it and dispatching it to me. It was just a few days. So I think that's a really good opportunity for anyone. But also, if you've got a 3D printer, and something that isn't in that list, there's also the option of, I think, maybe running a YouTube channel on 3D printing. And, you know, as we know, many people do YouTube things, and there's various ways of making money on YouTube, aren't there, Ben?
That's right. Yeah, you can make a channel for that, and I don't know how saturated that market is, but I'm sure there's people are always looking for clear videos on how to do something.
Yeah.
And 3D printing could be that one for you. Um, yeah, so that transitions well into ways to make money on YouTube. So this depends on what kind of videos you do and a lot of different things, but there's more than maybe just the options you would think. Um, so we can talk about some of these. So the first one is the basics of advertising through YouTube's partner program. So this is what you probably think of when you think of, when you think of making money on YouTube. So this would be that you sign up for the YouTube partner program, and then there are ads on your videos so that when someone watches your video, you get some money, and then YouTube gets some money. There are some requirements for this. You can't just start it if your channel is brand new. You need to have some clout first, I suppose, some subscribers and the like. And then you get money from the videos that are watched. Now, this is not a sure thing. Obviously, people have to watch your videos, and you don't get a ton of money per view, and there's not really a formula to show you how much money you earn per view or anything like that. So, obviously, you know, if you have a video that goes super popular, you might make some money off of that, but it really depends. So it's kind of an overtime thing for your video collections to continue earning.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Next would be product placement. So this isn't super common, but product placement would be, you know how this is obviously in a movie or a TV show. If there's a Sony Pictures movie, you might have somebody playing a PlayStation on a Sony TV, or a Pepsi vending machine in a show, that kind of thing. Product placement would be on YouTube, something you obviously can't really do until you have a following, because companies won't want to advertise with you if nobody knows who you are. But product placement would be that you add something into an existing video. So the example I give in a related article to this is that years ago, Rhett and Link, the comedy duo, did a song called Get Off the Phone, like Don't Text and Drive. And in the video, there is a specific type of car that was a product placement deal with that company. So they were already going to make the video, and the video stands alone without that product placement, but a company paid money for that car to be in the scene because they knew a lot of people would see it. So that's one example. A more general version of this that is accessible to smaller YouTubers is sponsorships or sponsored videos. So I'm sure you've seen this if you've watched YouTube at all. A sponsored video is just when someone says, hey, this video is sponsored by whatever VPN. Usually there's a small snippet in the video where they tell you about it. There's a code, so that if you sign up with their code, they make some money. You get a discount, that kind of thing. That's a sponsorship that's super common. A sponsored video would be when the entire video that you do is for a company. So sometimes you'll see this with gaming YouTubers where they do a 5-minute video about some new mobile game or whatever, where the whole video is the focus of the sponsorship. So it's still their opinions, but they're working with the company to get it in front of their viewers. So this is a hard line to walk because you have to appear genuine. Like a lot of the companies that promote on YouTube are very scammy or just questionable.
It's difficult to do, isn't it? I hear it. I've seen it on YouTube channels and podcasts, and also on audio podcasts. You've got, and they'll have a conversation. The two guys, like I might say to you, "Hey, do you know what, Ben? I've been really suffering with my with my eyesight lately," and you might come back with, "Well, have you tried the garlic eye drops?" And I was like, "No, I haven't. What do they do?" And you'd say to them, "Well, they help you see in French or something, something stupid."
Right.
But they always seem very forced, don't they? So it's especially if they're absolutely nothing to do with the show that you're watching.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're watching, like a political commentary channel and then they're advertising like eye cream or something, it's kind of out there, bizarre. Yeah. And like I said, you have to watch too, because we don't have to get into this, but one of the brands you might be familiar with is Established Titles that was advertising on YouTube. That was a big thing in the past 6 months where a lot of companies were advertising for them. But when you looked into their claims, it was very flimsy. Have you heard about them?
I'm aware that this happens. I can't think of any specifics at the moment, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, we'll skip over that for now because I don't want to get too lost in the weeds. Sure. But it is interesting. If you're curious, there's videos about Established Titles. Scott Schaefer, I believe, is a YouTuber who did some videos about this. If you're interested in how some of these companies can be a little bit on the less legitimate end, take a look at his videos. Moving on to more legitimate methods, affiliate links is another one. So you're probably familiar with affiliate links. You've definitely seen them if you've browsed any website online. These are just simply that there's a custom link for you. And when you share that with your viewers on YouTube, when they click the link and they make a purchase, you make a little bit of money. So for example, if you're a photography channel and you recommend X camera or X lenses or whatever, if you add an affiliate link to Amazon or whatever other website, if somebody clicks that and they make a purchase, then you're getting a share of that. They're a good passive source of income. So most people, if they're going to buy something, especially if you recommended it, they're fine to use your affiliate link because they're going to buy it anyway. So why not give a little bit of income to the person that showed them that it was a good idea? Obviously, with a lot of these things, as we talked about, they're very pervasive on YouTube. So VPNs, Audible, that kind of stuff, Squarespace, everybody's sponsored by them. So there's probably very few people who are looking to sign up for these services that haven't already known about them. But whatever you can get when you're starting out is fine.
Definitely.
Another option is fan funding or channel subscriptions. These are kind of lumped together. So fan funding would be if you use a service like Patreon or Subscribestar is another option. This is where it's kind of like an ongoing Kickstarter. So instead of it being like one project where you fund it and it's over, Patreon is if you pay me, there's different tiers. So if you pay me $3 a month, you get early access to videos. If you pay me $5 a month, there's a bonus video for patrons, that kind of thing. This basically lets your most loyal fans directly reward you, and it's nice because it's more consistent income. You can look and see, okay, I have 10 patrons at $5 a month or whatever, and it's more consistent income than YouTube's ad revenue can be, like we talked about. YouTube also offers channel memberships, which are basically a built-in way to do this now. It's like Twitch subscriptions we talked about earlier. Someone pays $5 a month to join your channel. They get a few rewards like emotes they can use on your channel in exchange for supporting you. So you can also ask directly for donations. Some people might want to do that if they see your PayPal link in the description. They might throw you a few dollars if they appreciated your video.
Yeah, some of those things do have a bit of a time overhead, though, don't they? So it's probably a good idea to spend a bit of time just get into grips with the service you're using, whether it's Patreon or Subscribestar or whatever, and then deciding what it is you want to give away for that increased level of subscription, and then decide how much extra time it's actually going to take you and whether it's worth it.
Yeah, and you have to with a lot of these things too, especially the Patreon and related options. It's good to definitely put some thought into it because you want to make it feel like people are getting something that's worth their while for supporting you. Some
Yeah.
people are happy to support you and they don't care what they get in return, but some people they'll subscribe because they want the early videos or they want like the commentary video where you talk over one of your past videos and share more to people about it. So definitely think about what's right for your audience and your type of videos that you make for that. So it's not just kind of phoned in. Another option is selling merchandise. So you've probably seen this. Same thing with a lot of your favorite YouTubers. This is where you can set up a shop like Spread Shop. There's a lot of different options that are already set up for you to sell mugs, shirts, hats, that kind of thing, T-shirts, and then you just put your own designs on them. Maybe it's an inside joke from your channel. Maybe it's art that you drew. Maybe it's your channel logo, whatever. And then anybody that's a fan of you can purchase that merchandise to have on their wall or wear or whatever. This is especially good if if you have a lot of art branding for your channel. This is a good way to get that out there. And then the last point, kind of general, we talked about it earlier, just branching out to other services. So if you're earning well on YouTube and you're kind of seeing success there, not a bad idea to work on earning from a few other platforms. So we talked about earlier, if you're doing well on YouTube, consider maybe streaming on Twitch. Maybe sign up for Instagram if you don't already use it to share bite-sized clips of your videos there or different tips with people. And then if they see having more eyes available to see you on Instagram or wherever else will lead more people to your YouTube channel, and then you'll be able to make more money from that. So yeah, those are some of the ways. Like we said, it varies based on your channel style and how big you are on YouTube and that kind of thing. But there are a lot of ways to diversify the money you make on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a look at this as well on a previous occasion that I'll make use of, and in terms of how much money you could actually make from a YouTube channel, you could potentially make $5,000 per month, but to do that, you would need around 1 million subscribers. So it's a very good idea to look into other avenues for generating income around YouTube, if that is the direction you wanted to go in, and to build up that audience through those other methods as well. They'll all contribute eventually, and you might do well enough to be someone like the kid from Ryan's World, Ryan Kaji, or Logan Paul, or PewDiePie, or any of those people. But you need to build the subscribers before you can do that, and that's not going to happen overnight. And it's going to take a lot of work. Now, I think a lot of the attraction of making money online is that it appears to be low effort for high returns, and that is almost never the case. In fact, I'm going to even drop the almost. That is never the case. There are various ways that you can be caught out with this by thinking that it's easy, and it really isn't. So we've got a list of some dodgy things that you might accidentally get involved in, and because they shine a big light of make money here, and it really is pretty sketchy. So we'll go through them. Number one, paid freelancing platforms and gigs. It might seem like a good idea to sign up to freelancing sites, and to be honest with you, people have made money with them, but even the most experienced writers struggle to get gigs through freelancing sites. And, I'm one of them. I gave up with them about 5 or 6 years ago. Up to that point, I'd probably had about 5 or 6 gigs over the course of 10 years. And that's pushing it. And that's not even all through one site. And just as a little aside here, because we did talk about freelancing earlier. My first paid freelancing gig was making up descriptions of Eastern European cigarettes.
That sounds thrilling.
Yes. This is going back to sort of pre-2010, probably about 2007, 8 sort of time, maybe earlier. But I got to about somehow I'd managed to make 50 completely distinct descriptions of cigarettes, And, you know,
Wow, okay.
I'd stopped smoking about 3 years before, so I was finding this very difficult as well. I had to do 250, I think, in the end. And that is the sort of gig that you're likely to get from a freelancing site. So, you know, maybe avoid that. Drop shipping. This is a term that goes back to the early days of the internet. This idea
Really?
that, yeah.
I really don't think I ever heard this term
Oh,
until the
God,
last
yeah.
year or two.
Really?
Probably it's just probably my ignorance, but
Yeah, so basically, it's something that took off through eBay originally, and it's the idea that you don't have any stock, you order stock to sell. You basically you sell stock that you don't have, and then you order it from a drop shipper who will then send it to the person who's bought it off you, and obviously you're going to be selling it to them for more than you're ordering it from the drop shipper, so that you make a bit of a profit. But for it to work, I mean, you need to be thinking in kind of shop quantities, so even supermarket or hypermarket quantities. You need to sell a lot of these on a reasonable markup, because people who shop around, they'll find people selling it cheaper. So it's a lot of hard, intensive online work, and very rarely does it work out. Paid surveys, yeah, I mean, you could average about $1 to $5 a day if you're lucky. I mean, I'm a big fan of Google Opinion Rewards, but that's basically because you can just walk a lot. You can be stood at the bus stop or walking along and just like answer a question and get 20 cents, 30p, whatever, and it just adds on to your account, and you can use it to buy apps and games or videos or whatever on the Google Play. It's not a living; it's just a handy sort of like nice, easy side gig, I suppose. This paid surveys, you can't live off paid surveys. It's really not worth it. And some of them, I mean, like 50 cents to $1 for a 15 to 30-minute survey. That's for the total. That's not per minute. Yeah, it's insane.
I remember in college, I'm with you on Google Opinion Rewards. I think that one's solid, and they're just simple too. It's usually like a 2-minute survey about, hey, I went to this store and it was a good deal or whatever.
Yeah.
There's one that I used in college that I can't even remember what the name of it was, but I remember they actually sent you a gift card when you I think it was $5 or $20 or something. The first when I first hit it, they sent you a gift card physically the first time, and after that it was all digital. And I remember I actually did get one, and I was in college, so I'm like, hey, if I just spend a few minutes here or there. I use one called Survey Monkey Rewards now that I occasionally do, but it pops up and says this survey will pay you X dollars or cents, and it will take X minutes. So if it's like 50 cents for a minute survey, I'll do that. But I mean, and you can keep your balance in there and then cash it out to an Amazon card or whatever. But it's something I do when I have 2 minutes to kill. It's not, you're right. I mean, you're not going to be making enough money to be buying nice electronics every month because you're making hundreds from surveys.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, number 4. Okay, look, this is really simple. You are not going to make money trading cryptocurrency or invest in cryptocurrency. Okay, that's it. Let's move on. Number 5, become an Instacart shopper. I wasn't aware of this. So basically, you can. I don't really understand it, to be honest.
Yeah,
with you.
I'm familiar with it because I'm slightly familiar with it because my friend has done this. Basically, it's sort of like you're doing Uber Eats, except you're doing it with people's grocery shopping. So this is where you say, okay, I need someone to go to this supermarket and buy 10 things. And I believe it's all in the app. So you just like, I want this cereal, I want this lettuce, I want this milk, whatever. And I think you can watch, not watch them like through a camera, but you can watch like as they add things. I think they like grab it off the shelf, they scan it, and then you see like, hey, your Instacart person has just put cornflakes in the cart or whatever, and then they bring it to you and drop it off. So you're just basically paying someone to grocery shop for you, which, as the article says, it's a lot longer to go to a store and grab all the groceries versus just picking up food at McDonald's or whatever. So,
okay, that makes a little bit more sense. We have something similar in the UK, which is built into Amazon. So, it's a lot easier than that. Although I am aware that Uber Eats does food deliveries from supermarkets now.
I don't think I knew that. Yeah, Uber seems to just be expanding to cover everything. I mean, you can get a pet delivered from that. Not actually, I'm just joking. But Yeah, it's like
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Okay. I mean, number 6. I refer you back to my previous answer concerning cryptocurrency. Forex trading. I mean, foreign exchange markets are deregulated, so there's the potential there to make money, but it's not particularly likely. Investments, they go up and they go down. It can be lucrative. It's probably not going to be, basically. Daily fluctuations. I mean, at the very best, reasonably speaking, it's going to bring you as much money as the current interest rate, I guess. Really.
Yeah, that's the thing. You might as well just open one of those high yield interest accounts and put your money in a high yield account.
Exactly.
As with all kinds of trading, including crypto, if you don't know what you're doing, you're setting yourself up to lose money, basically.
Totally. And Airbnb rental arbitrage is where you rent a property and then rent it out. Or beg your pardon, you lease a property and then you sublease it on Airbnb, which, it gets you into the game. It's not really something I would be happy even considering, or if I knew someone that was doing it, I'd be seriously warning against them. Because, you take a sublease agreement with a landlord who maybe isn't interested in getting involved in Airbnb, and if it fails, then you've got an issue with your credit rating straight away. That's just one of the risks. There's various people's been oversimplifying this, and people on YouTube and podcasts, even a few YouTube ads I've seen, explain how easy this is to do. And everything, these people in these adverts, everything is easy. The one about the Audible books thing where you can make hundreds of dollars a month just by reading Audible books and selling them on Audible.
I have not heard that.
Oh,
that
yeah.
Seems totally fishy.
Yeah. I mean, you can, for a start off, recording them is a bit of an issue if you don't have a decent voice. Secondly, if you don't have decent recording equipment. And thirdly, who wants to hear a story read by the bloke who you've never heard of when, I don't know, David Tennant or Patrick Stewart are reading the same story? Which one are you going to go for?
Yeah, a lot of these, I sent you, when we were talking about this beforehand, I sent you some of those clowns on Twitter who do the same thing, where like the remote closing, where it's like you can make $10,000 a month by just setting up appointments for companies. Like, they always have like the Twitter thread with like the one sentence, the very like, yeah, you might not be making this money, but you can. Here are 8 tips with the point. Like, it's everything I hate about these Twitter jokers. But yeah, like, I have this perfect option that's going to make you, put you in the top 5% of earners in the United States, and no one knows about it. I'm just sharing it for free with you on Twitter. Like, it's so easy. You don't have to do anything. Like, it's they're telling on themselves by just what they're saying with all this stuff. It's so easy. It's so easy. Yeah, if it's that easy, everybody would just be sitting at home doing it all day.
Exactly. And I suppose to the end of this, and everything we've discussed in this podcast, as ever, you'll find in the show notes. And if making money online is something that you're interested in doing, then I really recommend you read these articles properly and take the time to weigh up the options and the pros and the cons and the scams. Now, MLMs, multi-level marketing, aren't illegal, and they aren't necessarily scams. They're not illegal pyramid marketing because they have a slightly different structure. However, I have never come across a multi-level marketing program that I've looked at and read the details and thought, that's not what it says it is, really. I was involved with one about 25 years ago, my word. And what was it doing? It was some sort of plastic box thing. I can't remember what it was called. It was like door-to-door knocking. Do you want to buy some plastic boxes? Essentially, you put a catalogue through people's doors, and then you come back and hopefully they had an order for a plastic box. And even now it sounds stupid. But, people wanted to buy plastic boxes in those days. Or actually, no, they didn't. And, over the years, there have been many. Avon is probably the most famous one worldwide, or certainly across the West. There's a few others. The Body Shop.
Amway is big here. Amway is a very, very popular, very popular in the sense that, probably everybody knows someone who's sold it or has been asked to sell it.
Okay. I think Body Shop or Lush, one of those brands, has one as well. The deal is you give someone a catalog, they order out of it, and then you make a bit of a commission off it. But very few people make money based on the effort that they're putting into it. There's always someone higher up who's making more money than you because they're also getting a commission from your commission. And you can see what's going on here. So there are MLMs online now. As a personal recommendation, I would suggest, unless you've got some special entrance into the company that's going to pop you up a lot higher up than the grunt on the street with the catalog, avoid, basically.
This is definitely, if you're hearing about it, it's already too late to make money, basically.
Yeah.
There's a stat in this article, which I knew before I saw it here, but the FTC in the US found that 99% of people that join an MLM lose money. So you are statistically extremely likely to not even break even or make a little bit of money, but just lose money. So just stay away. Whenever you get that friend that's calling you that, hey, I have an opportunity, just don't even bother. We can include this in the show notes, maybe the YouTube channel Kit Boga that I think we've talked about before, who does the scam baiting videos where he wastes phone scammers' time. He did a video about MLMs, and he goes into a lot of detail about several more reasons why they're mostly a sham and why you shouldn't watch them. So I can send that to you to include in the show notes if anybody's interested.
Excellent. So hopefully we've given you a good impression of the opportunities for making money online. Now of course, we've only really scratched the surface of both opportunities and things that you should be very suspicious about. But I do think that we've given you the right flavour there, and that whatever area you're interested in, you will explore it, I beg your pardon, further, and maybe contextualise it with what we've discussed and make your decision based on that. There are opportunities. I've been working mostly through websites and a few magazines, but mostly websites, and since the mid 2000s, and earning enough to live on without a 9-to-5 job since 2010. So it is possible. It can be done. It's basically using the knowledge that you have, finding the right outlet for it, finding out whether people are interested in paying for that information, that knowledge, your experience, your insights, and whether or not it's writing, whether or not it's broadcasting or webcasting, whether it's an artistic avenue, whatever. There are opportunities there, and as the world moves more online, obviously there are going to be, but it's all a case of making sure you're making the right decisions, looking in the right places, and not falling victim to scams. You've been listening to the Really Useful Podcast with myself, Christian Cawley, and with Ben Stegner. We're both from makeuseof.com. Everything that we've discussed will be found in the show notes. And, of course, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to us on Spotify, Amazon Podcasts. We're pretty much everywhere you'll find podcasts. And if you want to get in touch with us, we're on Twitter via the show notes. Until next time, it's goodbye from us.